Welcome to a look back at the history of Veterans Memorial Auditorium. It would be quite an undertaking to scour the past and include in a 15-minute video all of the events held at Vets that meant so much to so many Iowans. We hope instead to look at the history of Vets as a whole, highlight the great variety of events throughout the years, and include a sneak peek of what the renovations will bring. Join us now as we look back, beginning with a vision for greatness. Construction began on December 15, 1952, and officials laid the cornerstone to Veterans Memorial Auditorium in 1954. At 7,227 permanent seats and over 95,000 square feet of exhibit space, Vets became one of the largest arenas and exhibit halls in the country. Iowa and Des Moines competed with leading venues in Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. This footage depicts in just a couple of minutes the various stages of the construction process. Opened in 1955, the first event held at Vets was a policeman's ball. Soon after, Vets also began its storied history with the state high school basketball tournaments.
When I was in high school, one of the great memories was you were living large if you got to stay at the Hotel Fort Des Moines, go to Babe's restaurant, eat a pizza, and then come up to the basketball game. One of the best live basketball games I've ever seen was finals where Cedar Rapids Jefferson played Ames. And like a lot of small town kids that year, we rooted for the underdog Ames. They lost in overtime. It was one of the best games I've ever seen in live basketball, college or high school. And the place was loud. We were up in the nosebleed seats near the roof, and there wasn't a bad seat to be had that night. That's pretty common at Vets Auditorium over the years during the high school tournaments. Somebody would leave work, and their small town basketball team would come to Vets, finally, or again in some cases for them, and they were going over to see it. It was like going to a class reunion for many of us.
In 1956, Vets played host to the first ever rock and roll concert held in Des Moines. Elvis Presley performed his first Iowa concert, much to the disdain of the Iowa press, most of whom did not look favorably upon his dancing style. Throughout the years, Vets hosted many trade shows such as this Iowa Sport and Vacation Show, also in 1956. Of interest was this Trail It cruiser, capable of travel on the road and in the water. Many successful shows used Vets throughout its history. Some of the most popular included the Auto Show, Flower Show, and Home and Garden Show. Newcomers to Iowa often hear of the weather curse on the state girls' basketball tournament. In 1959, a particularly heavy snowfall led to spectators hunkering down to a restless sleep on Vets' hard benches. In 1967, a double bill performance featuring Andy Williams and Henry Mancini attracted over 11,000 people to Vets, a box office record that would stand for almost 10 years. In addition to entertainers, Vets played host to many sports. Iowa's high school state tournaments were held at Vets for 50 years. Here, Hoover High School is celebrating their Class 2A consolation victory. Many different sports, teams, and famous athletes played in Vets throughout the years. The ice floor at Vets was home to the Des Moines Ice Hawks of the Central Hockey League in the early 60s. The American Bowling Congress held their championship at Vets over 69 days in 1962. The rodeo was also a crowd favorite.
And our friends' kids, we all came here and brought our kids their cowboy hats, their boots on, and of course all that paraphernalia they'd hawk here for Vets Auditorium. And of course you get suckered into buying one or two of those lights for your kids.
Other famous or soon-to-be famous athletes spent some time in Vets. Wilt Chamberlain traveled here as a member of the Harlem Globetrotters. Oscar Robinson and Larry Bird also traveled here as the respective college teams tipped off against Drake University, which called Vets home until 1992.
Drake basketball. Drake basketball here at Vets Aud. I saw Lewis Lloyd playing, saw a lot of fun games. Greatest thing in that era, I got to see Larry Bird twice. When he played here, Indiana State came. Place was packed each time, and that was a great event to see.
1977 saw the return of Elvis to Vets Auditorium. Ticket prices ranged from $10 to $15. Elvis died just a couple of months after the June 23rd concert. Rock star Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a bat and was treated for rabies at Broadlawns Hospital in 1982. Throughout its history, Vets hosted many famous acts as they would crisscross the nation on tour. Besides those already mentioned, Lawrence Welk, Neil Diamond, Van Halen, Kiss, AC/DC, Metallica, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Fleetwood Mac, Jerry Lee Lewis, Leonard Skinner, and the Steve Miller Band all played Vets. John Denver and Red Skelton still live in the memories of some Vets goers.
John Denver came in concert. It was the last of, you might say, his swing tours in the 80s when he was still getting good audiences. They did Theater in the Round, and he was on a rotating stage. It was actually the best acoustics I've ever seen and heard for Vets to do it in the round and the stage rotating. It was very good.
Red Skelton was my #1 favorite. A tremendous comedian. He put on a really good show, and he went straight through the whole show. And at that time, he was quite elderly, too, but still very funny.
Vets Auditorium wasn't one to shy away from civic duty either. During the record flooding in 1993, Vets was the official water storage facility for the city of Des Moines. Over 250,000 residents were without water at some point during the wet summer. 1993 was also the end of a tradition. Vets hosted the final 6-on-6 basketball tournament as the Girls Athletic Union voted to discontinue the game. In 1995, Vets celebrated its 40th anniversary and hosted the Arena Football League's Iowa Barnstormers' inaugural season. Future NFL MVP starting quarterback Kurt Warner opened as the Barnstormers QB and led the team to Arena Bowls 10 and 11, both losses, during his 3-year AFL career.
That was something else, the Barnstormers. The way it was set up, the people that had a little more to drink than they should have had, they'd go diving for the football when it come out of bounds, and right over there by that, it would be the northwest corner. More than once, the guy would fall out of the stands going for the football down onto that concrete and didn't feel a thing, got back up and went back to his seat. But they were wild, they really were.
The Iowa Barnstormers is really a definitive draw for me at Vets Auditorium during the 90s. We got to see Kurt Warner play for the Iowa Barnstormers here. You could see Warner drop back and not realize it at the time, but you knew he was getting off fast passes. Those were 3.1, 3.2 seconds after the snap from a pocket. When he went to the NFL and was so great later, and they couldn't figure out how's this guy get off such quick releases, because the NFL was used to 4.1, 4.2 second max. We knew where that came from. We knew the Barnstormers' history.
The completion of Wells Fargo Arena in 2005 was the end of an era for Vets Auditorium. It was the final year Vets hosted the state tournaments. The wrestling and basketball tournaments would relocate to Wells Fargo the following year. Not to be forgotten are the many people who have worked in Vets throughout the years. The administration, staff, engineers, and ushers all have played an important part in the history of the barn. They also have stories that one might not usually have the chance to hear.
We had the circus on the main level and the craft show on the lower level. And it rained quite a bit that weekend. And there was a booth, a lady from Minnesota, be over there on the north side, kind of northeast. and water was dripping on her quite a bit. And she finally mentioned it to somebody, and we got to investigating. The largest elephant in captivity was right above her, and that elephant drank an awful lot of water. And that's what was dripping down on this woman. Surprisingly, she didn't get upset, but she didn't sit there anymore. Oh, we had one night where the circus sold their own snow cones, and somebody in the balcony had dripped a lot of that snow cone down on a woman with a very expensive fur coat, and she was upset. Well, I was sent to the front office. The front office says it's not our snow cones, it's the circus snow cones. So I was sent to the circus office. And I talked to the guy in there and told him what the problem was and where the woman was. He took up a collection in the front office, in his office, the show office, and he went out and he got her in the corner and made her happy.
Of course, one of the main functions of vets throughout the years was to host the annual Memorial Day and Veterans Day programs. Just as the name on the building, these programs offer remembrance and honor to those who risked their lives for our country. Recently, vets also hosted a send-off ceremony, a very moving experience.
The veterans events have been moving throughout the years, but the most moving event I came to was just my last one in August. The send-off ceremony for a 334th Brigade Support Battalion was here, and I came down to it just as somebody in the public, a veteran showing support. And you come to basketball games and people cry when they lose, but nothing's tangible compared to parents coming here, and as you leave, seeing parents crying and telling somebody thanks, they're going off to war.